A while back, I covered this story, this article, on the Friendly Atheist website. The title was Alleged Whitmer Kidnapper Doesn't Want Anyone Hearing Him Say God Gave the Okay. Now, there's been an update to this story, so I wanted to go through the update. Basically, people are currently being sentenced for their roles in the kidnapping plot. But before we get to the update, I just want to give a little bit of a refresher on everything that happened. So let's start by reading this article, and then we'll take a look at the next one. This is written by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. Last year, more than a dozen men were arrested for their attempted plot to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. One of those guys was Barry Croft, a right-wing militia leader of the Three Percenters group who stormed the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Croft's arrest was particularly interesting because prosecutors and eventually a judge said he couldn't be trusted to be released until his trial date, and that's largely because he believed he had permission from God to commit murder. This guy was actually planning out this whole plot to bust into the Capitol, kidnap the Michigan governor, and it was being carried out by multiple people. I guess earlier in the year, there was a protest, I think an anti-mask protest or something like that, anti-lockdown protest, and they were there recruiting. And that's how the FBI got into their group, was by joining in when they were recruiting at this protest. And they started following them around and, getting deeper and deeper into the group, basically infiltrated it, and finally blew the whistle when they were actually carrying out this plot to kidnap Gretchen Whitmer. It was a pretty fucking big deal at the time. Let's keep reading. The media is now trying to access his statements to that effect, and his lawyers are doing everything they can to prevent that from happening. They don't want the world to know that, what was it again? Croft thinks God gave him permission to murder someone. Every extremist goes down this rabbit hole. This is the result of an ends justify the means mentality. This is what you get. People believe that it's okay to break the law, to hurt people, to do whatever it takes to accomplish your goal. An ends justify the means mentality is the weapon that cults use to justify atrocities. It's been like this for millennia. You don't want to go down that road. So that's my basic summary of the story. Let's check out the update. This is on NBC News. The title is Man Who Plotted to Kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer Sentenced to Over 6 Years. This is written by Pete Williams. Let's give it a read and see what it says. A Michigan man who admitted taking part in an extremist group's plot to kidnap Governor Gretchen Whitmer in retaliation for COVID restrictions was sentenced Wednesday to over 6 years in prison. The man, Ty Garbin, again, different from the guy we were just talking about. That was Barry Croft, who I think was the national leader of the Three Percenters. This guy we're talking about now is Ty Garbin, 25, is the only person to have pleaded guilty out of the more than a dozen men facing state and federal charges stemming from the plot. 5 of those charged in federal court pleaded not guilty and faced trial in October. I am so fucking glad we have the FBI to infiltrate groups like this, really. Holy shit. The FBI does some pretty fucked up stuff sometimes, but this is a situation in which the FBI was absolutely on point and did the right thing. Let's keep reading. U.S. District Judge Robert Jonker sentenced Garbin to 75 months in prison, followed by 3 years of probation and a $2,500 fine. I feel like that's not exactly enough time. I would like to see more. They were literally taking part in a plot to kidnap the governor of Michigan. If somebody was doing that to the president of the U.S., what would their charges be? Would it be more than 6 years? My God, I can't believe they got out of this with only 6 fucking years. During the sentencing hearing, Garbin apologized to Whitmer, who was not present. Quote, "First, I'd like to take this opportunity to apologize to Governor Gretchen Whitmer and her family," he told the court. "I've had a lot of time to reflect on my actions, and I never realized what my actions would have caused to her, but also her family." Suddenly he gives a shit about her family? What? This is fucking weird. "I can't even begin to imagine the amount of stress and fear her family members felt because of my actions, and for that, I'm truly sorry," he said. Why is he so wrapped up in her family and how they felt about it? This is strange shit. Garbin also apologized to his friends and family. I never took into consideration the emotional effect that my actions would take on them as well, he said, and for that I was truly selfish to not take into consideration my family members that have meant so much to me. He expressed a desire to continue to de-radicalize himself and help prevent others from becoming radicalized and going down the same path. That's good news. He's showing remorse. He's explaining why he knows this is wrong now and says he wants to try to de-radicalize himself and others. That's good news. I wasn't there at the sentencing. I wasn't there in the courtroom. I didn't hear all of this stuff. I haven't been in the room when therapists have certainly talked to him. So I don't know if 6 years was an appropriate amount of time. Maybe he really is genuine and really has realized the error of his ways. If that's the case, I'm okay with reducing his sentence. I am in favor of rehabilitation, not punishment. I want to protect society from those that it needs protected from, and rehabilitation, helping these people get back on their feet, clear their heads, get their heads screwed on straight, and re-enter society as healthier, safer people. That's what I want. That's my goal. If that's really what's happening here, then I'm in favor of it. I can't imagine the guy was successful in basically snowing, how many dozens of court officers and judges and lawyers and therapists and everything else. I would be okay with it if he was really on a road to recovery from extremism. That'd be fine with me. I hope that's the case, but I guess time will tell. Let's keep reading. In explaining why he was granting a shorter sentence than federal guidelines called for, Jonker cited Garbin's concrete actions that showed he was taking responsibility for his actions. That's what's more impressive to me here, and not just the words of Mr. Garbin that he's abandoning this path, but the things he's done, concrete things he's done to demonstrate that he means it. Government lawyers said Garbin cooperated extensively with their investigation, providing a wide-ranging insider's view of the conspiracy, which they said evolved from planning to attack legislators at the state capitol to rehearsing a plot to kidnap Whitmer from her lakeside summer home last fall. Wow, man. Like I said, if all of this information I'm getting from this article is accurate, I'm okay with a reduced sentence. I want people to get better. Informed of the plot a year ago, Whitmer said, quote, "I knew the job would be hard, I'll be honest. I never could have imagined anything like this." Prosecutors said 4 members of a militia group that called itself the Wolverine Watchmen joined 2 other men, Adam Fox and Barry Croft Jr., which is the guy we were just talking about, Barry Croft, a minute ago. Guy who said he had permission from God to murder. In discussing the kidnapping plans and in what they called field training exercises, which included using guns and practicing how to breach a building. The men conducted surveillance of Whitmer's summer house both in the daytime and at night and discussed planting explosives under a bridge to slow police who would respond, court documents said. This is a concerning level of crazy. This is beyond crazy at this point. This is a full-blown domestic terrorist group who draws up plans and plots to kidnap and take out major public figures like politicians, government officials, and stuff. This is concerning. This is the kind of shit that we pay taxes for right here, to make sure that these people are properly dealt with, like followed, tracked, and de-radicalized if at all possible. This is fucking nutty. Back to the article. Investigators said Fox proposed holding Whitmer for trial, quote-unquote, or putting her in the middle of Lake Michigan in a boat without a motor as a statement. If they put her in the middle of Lake Michigan in a boat without a motor or without oars or anything, she probably would actually die out there. Lake Michigan is fucking humongous. It's gigantic. Let's see. How big is Lake Michigan? I misspelled Michigan. 22,000 square miles. Lake Michigan is 22,000 square miles. Put her in a boat in the middle of Lake Michigan with no motor and maybe no oars, presumably. I mean, that's what I'm picking up here. No propelling device to get back. She would die out there. I can't imagine. I mean, maybe the police would be able to fly over and see where she was and pick her up in a helicopter or something. I don't know, but Lake Michigan's fucking huge. Their plan was to deal with her. Their plan was to take her out of power and put themselves in. Federal agents said state police arrested the suspects in October, moving in when the FBI became concerned that an undercover source who had infiltrated the group was about to be discovered. Oh shit. Garbin's cooperation, prosecutors said, filled in the gaps in the government's knowledge by recounting conversations and actions that did not include the informant. Garbin became frustrated with Whitmer's COVID restrictions when he faced a reduction in income as a mechanic, his attorney said, so he sought out other aggrieved people online and discovered the Wolverine Watchman. Well, welcome to the fucking club, buddy. We all suffered from COVID and COVID restrictions and COVID everything. It wasn't the governor's fault. The governor, the president, everybody, the U.S. politicians generally are trying to get us out of this situation. People just want somebody to blame here. They want somebody to blame in this situation when ultimately there's nobody to blame. Having pandemics is part of the human race. This is what it is. We have virus DNA in us. We've always dealt with pandemics since the dawn of fucking time. That's what this is. We have to deal with this. And instead of bitching about it, you know what I did? Instead of bitching about it, I did my best to slow the spread, to flatten the curve, wore masks everywhere I went, left my house as little as I possibly could, only went out for necessary things, work-related things, and food, and pharmacy, and doctor, and that's about it. That's what I did. I stopped going to the movie theaters, stopped going to do fucking anything. That's what an adult would do to help the people around them. Instead, this guy is frustrated with restrictions when he faced a reduction in income. Welcome to the fucking club. Everybody dealt with that. We didn't turn into domestic terrorists. Like I said, dude's trying to get better. He provided concrete information and he had his sentence reduced. I'm okay with that. You know, if the guy's trying to de-radicalize, I'm okay with that. I'm just saying the premise of why he was upset in the first place is outrageous. We were all suffering. You aren't the only one. Let's keep reading. Federal sentencing guidelines called for a term of up to 17 and a half years. Attorneys for Garbin and the government urged the judge to take his extensive cooperation into account. Prosecutors recommended 9 years. His attorney called for a sentence well below the guidelines. Both his attorneys and the government said that by agreeing to plead guilty and cooperate, Garbin put himself at risk of retaliation from extremist inmates in the prison system. Garbin willingly put a target on his back to begin his own redemption, prosecutors said. Oh yeah, a lot of prisons are actually controlled by the Aryan Brotherhood, and yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And you know what the solution is in jail to problems with other inmates? Solitary confinement. That is not a solution. Solitary confinement is cruel and unusual punishment. We are social creatures. Removing the social element in our lives will destroy somebody. It will turn them literally psychotic. I don't give a shit what you've done. You shouldn't be put in solitary confinement. It should not be used as a punishment or a negotiating tactic or any of that shit. It shouldn't be used at all. Ever. There should be another solution to inter-prison violence. You know, when I bitch about something, I feel like I should come up with my own solution. So let me lay this one out for you. How about this one? What if you have the general population, just all of the people, right, in prison, and then you have another section of the prison, like one pod or one like wing of the prison or something that's designated for people who have problems with others. Basically protective custody. That way, people in protective custody aren't completely alone, but they're not in with the rest of the people who are really causing them problems. And after that, if you're still having an issue with somebody, then you can be put into an even narrower protective custody. Maybe a single pod or a single cell with one other person who isn't going to cause problems for you. The problem is the prison systems don't want to resolve these issues. They don't give a shit. They think they deserve it. Earlier, I was talking about Law & Order SVU, where the head detective is always beating people up, pulls a suspect into a room, and closes the door behind him and flips the camera off and starts beating their ass. And old people, like, get off on this. They fucking enjoy this shit. Why do people revel in this? It's fucking disgusting. We need to find a better way to treat prisoners, because no matter what they've done, no matter what they have done, they're still humans, and they still deserve human dignity. They still deserve human rights and protections. I don't know. Hopefully this kid has learned from his mistakes, and hopefully he can find protection that doesn't include solitary confinement, because that is literal torture. I spent 4 years alone in a room with no one else, no other human contact. I watched live news coverage to have some connection with the outside world. When I was 12 to 16, basically, is when this happened to me. It is not healthy. It's not good. It should not happen. I hope they find some other way to protect him that doesn't involve driving him to the edge of psychosis.